Hello there, and thanks for joining us again on the EduTalk Show. The EduTalk Show is brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. Guess what? This week we're talking about teachers. We're focusing on the teachers because we're talking about the role of the National Teaching Council in the professional development of teachers. What do you need to know about the continuous professional development of teachers? Guess what? Dr. Christian Addai Poku, the registrar for the National Teaching Council, will be joining us as we explore the continuous professional development of teachers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And thanks for staying with us here on the EduTalk Show. The EduTalk Show, as always, is brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. My guest for today is Dr. Christian Addai Poku. He's the registrar for the National Teaching Council. I'm sure that many of you have questions about the continuous professional development and all you need to know about how we can connect that to the National Teaching Council. Well, the man himself is here. He'll be explaining all of that to us. Dr. Christian Addai Poku, welcome to the EduTalk Show.
Thank you very much, Blessed, and greetings to all your listeners.
I'm sure that you've been around the country, and anytime you get to other parts of the country, you have many people walking up to you to say, well, when we talk about the National Teaching Council, exactly what do you do there?
Yeah, you're right. In the first place, let me say that it's even a surprise to a lot of people why, as a unionist, all of a sudden you change and you become a regulator. The National Teaching Council, per the object that established, the law that established the council, says that it is supposed to regulate the teaching profession. Over the years, we talk about teaching and we say teachers are professionals. And if you have to be a professional, then you have to belong to a professional organization that is well regulated. People had misconstrued teacher unions as professional bodies, but actually, the professional body that's supposed to regulate teaching is the council, and must have power to be able to discipline teachers when there is a need and enforce its code of ethics and professional standards. And that's what NTC does. We want to make sure that the teachers' professional standards is raised to the level that the council appreciates and believes that it will be good enough for teaching and learning to progress.
And that's why I'm happy you're here, because we're talking about the role of your outfit and how you contribute towards the professional development of teachers. Looking at your mandate, how do you situate that in the professional development of teachers?
All right. In the mandate of NTC, we have something we call a professional cycle. Mm-hmm. And the professional cycle starts right from the time somebody is trained to become a teacher. So we call that one pre-service teaching. We regulate how teachers are trained. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't get them right at the training level, it becomes difficult to change them when they are already in the system. So we regulate teaching, teacher education institutions by setting standards for them, by planning their curriculum framework for them, and also accrediting the teacher education institutions to be able to operate. That's the first part of it. When they have finished or completed the teacher education program, we take them through what we call teacher licensure examination. We test them to make sure that the training that they got is fidel with the curriculum framework that we gave them. If there is no fidelity, then it means the teachers are not properly trained. And so the licensure examination is the gatekeeper that helps us to be able to check that. Then after the licensure examination, when they have passed, we give them what we call a provisional license, which will authorize them to go to the classroom. Actually, entering the classroom means they're going to do what we call induction training. That one is done at the same time that they're doing their national service. So they use the 1 year to do induction training. We monitor their activities to be sure that they are properly trained. They get the hands-on experience they need to be able to teach. And when all these things are done, we give them the license, the full license to become professional teachers. We call them into the profession. Then when you are called into the profession, you're supposed to maintain that license that has been given you over a period of time.
Oh,
And
so
to
it's
be
not
able to-
forever.
It's not forever. Per the law, it's for 2 years.
Okay.
So after every 2 years, you're supposed to renew the license and the registration that has been given to you, have been given to you. And in doing that, there are certain conditions teachers must be able to meet. And one of them is what we call continuous professional development, because teachers impart knowledge. And to be able to impart knowledge, the teacher must make sure that he gets his students to be ready to study. He should teach such that the students should always be ready to study, should be so excited to study. And in doing that, the teacher must also be sure that he himself is also ready to study, because knowledge is not static. I always tell my teachers that one thing that is so is constant in the world is change, and knowledge changes every day. And to be able to do that, the teacher should not use his 5 years ago knowledge to impart today's knowledge. But knowledge changes every day. 3 days ago, I was with a friend. I was talking about, did you ever hear of diskette? Do you ever hear of diskette? Today, who uses diskette? So if you're a teacher, you're teaching
And you're still
computer,
teaching about
and you're
diskettes.
talking about diskette, you are
Yeah.
far away from
Right.
us. And Harry Ford said something, that industrialist said something, that anybody who fails to learn is old, irrespective of your age. Whether you are 20 years or 80 years, if you are not learning, you are old. Because the world changes and knowledge changes. And the moment you are so static about knowledge, you're old. So irrespective of your physical capacity, to be able to remain young, one of the parameters is that you must continue to learn. And that's why people say that leaders read and readers lead. Knowledge is in that book. And so if you don't learn, you don't get it.
What are the processes if one wants to renew the license?
The first thing is we have what we call point-based CPD system.
Okay.
And that CPD system gives you a number of points you are supposed to accumulate to be able to renew your license. That's the first thing. So per year, as at now, we are doing a lot of reforms. We are working with GES to do a lot of reforms. But per year, a teacher is supposed to make a minimum of 20 points. And there's a formula for doing that.
For calculating the points?
Yes.
Okay.
And so for the 2 years, you do 40 points. You'll be able to renew your license. That is how it is done. That is the first part of it. The second part is to also make sure that the teacher conforms to the professional ethics and standards. We have a professional code of practice. If a teacher violates that professional code of practice, and it is such that the teacher does not merit a license, then the system will not permit the teacher to get a license. But if the teacher conforms to all the professional codes of practice, then that's another way that a teacher can have the opportunity, combined with the continuous professional development points, the person can get his license.
We'll delve deeper into the professional development shortly, but do you apply the same 2-year framework to a fresh teacher, someone who's just graduating from the colleges of education?
It's the same. The only difference is that after graduation from College of Education, we give you a provisional license. Okay. The provisional license is valid for 1 year. And within the 1 year, you're supposed to do, or they are supposed to do induction training. So after the induction training, they are called into the profession and they are given a permanent license, which is valid for 2 years. After the 2 years, then you might have gone through the processes, and if you qualify, we renew it for you.
Okay. So now we are in that scenario where I'm a full accredited teacher. I have my license, but then there's a need for development all of the time. It may not necessarily be simply because of the licensure, and so you would have to prepare every next 2 years to take the exam. But when we refer to that term as the continuous professional development, what does it entail really?
The continuous professional development is a conscious and sustained steady process that enables the teacher to be up to date with knowledge. If you look at the Millennium Development Goals, it talks about lifelong learning. That's the goal 4. And lifelong learning means everybody, not even the teacher alone, everybody, whichever profession you belong to, you have to continue learning. But the teachers are so peculiar because we impart knowledge. And if you impart knowledge that is so calcified, that is so outmoded, then you are not useful. And so the system has been put in place to ensure that teachers are able to update their knowledge, their skills, to be able to deliver better. Because every day, new research comes out, or a lot of studies come out with different methodologies, different skills, different ways of doing things to make them better. 21st century studies or learning means that the teacher must be up to speed with 21st century skills for delivery. And that is what continuous professional development seeks to do.
In what context are we using the development? Because some see that as a mere case of career progression, and once that happens, say now you are a head teacher, when of course you started, you weren't a head teacher, now you're a head teacher. So well, let's consider that to be the continuous professional development. But technically speaking, is that all there is to it? Progression and that's all?
People talk about career progression as a continuous professional development, but that's not all.
Okay.
Your clients feel happy when you, as a staff, you feel happy. And for a staff to feel happy, one of the ways is to be very conversant with the work that you're doing and doing it well, having the confidence to be able to tackle the work and do it well. So it's not just about the progression. The career progression is one of them, because before you move from one level to another, you might have acquired certain competencies that qualify you to be at that level. But that's not all, especially for us as teachers. You may not necessarily need the competence to be able to move from one level to another, but you need the competence to be able to perform at that same level at any point in time. Because at that level that you are performing, for every day, for every week, for every month, for every year, new research comes out, and new knowledge comes out, and new skills are being developed. And so that is where the development lies, not necessarily saying that you are progressing from one level to another, but developing your ability, capacity to be able to undertake the job that you're supposed to undertake.
Do you see that confusion most of the time amongst teachers?
Especially in Ghana, the way our system is structured is such that we don't have duty post graduation. So somebody can be, let's say, a principal superintendent and will be in the classroom. Somebody will be a deputy director. The same classroom, maybe class one, teaching the same thing, using the same competencies. And so if continuous professional development is tailored for career progression, then it means two people teaching in class one will never progress. But that's not how it works. In the case of the teachers, it is more of making sure that capacity is built to be able to deliver at where you're supposed to be.
Well, I'm sure that you're being informed on the continuous professional development, but there are a lot of questions unanswered. For instance, what opportunities are there, and how is the NTC itself positioning the organization to support teachers to continue to pursue that professional development? We'll find out when we return from this break. You're watching the EduTalk Show. It's brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. We'll be right back. And you're welcome back to the EduTalk Show. Well, we are learning now that the continuous professional development is not just about career progression, but what are the opportunities, if there are any, for a teacher who wants to develop? Dr. Christian Addai Poku is the registrar for the National Teaching Council. He's here with us, and perhaps we may be learning about that opportunity. So, Doc, most teachers see you, well, at first you were a unionist, so yeah, they were friendly with you, but now they see you as that head teacher who is always giving them a test at the end of every 2 years. But how about the opportunities as well? What opportunities are you creating for these teachers in terms of their continuous professional development?
Okay. The continuous professional development, if you look at our framework, is planned in such a way that it should be so easy for every teacher to assess continuous professional development and progress. In the school setting, we have something we call school-based inset, where a department can decide that I'm organizing training for, let's say you go to a senior high school, the language department can organize training for the teachers within that department. And as they do that, the teachers accumulate points for doing it. We have, apart from the school-based inset, we have district-based inset also there. We have cluster-based inset. All these things are ways of getting points. And then not just the points. My focus is mostly on the knowledge the teacher gains. The points is just a measure of what you have done. But actually, it is the knowledge that's so important to us, and it's so accessible. Beyond these things, we also have private providers. We call them CPD providers, who also support teachers. Actually, they do it for a fee. So we register them, we regulate those service providers to make sure that the content that they are going to deliver is so wholesome for the teacher. And that
it meets the standards that you're setting.
Yes, that's it. And that whatever they are giving to the teachers, when it is transferred to the children or the learners, it will be appropriate. And so we monitor them and then regulate them too. And we assign them the schools to go and also deliver continuous professional development. The employer itself, the Ghana Education Service, and the private providers also have different ways of doing this. We have what we call professional learning community, where teachers gather and then they discuss topical issues and they learn from it. These are all means of updating your knowledge. We have what we call reflective practice, where a teacher, as I'm doing this and you are recording me, immediately after this you show what I have done to me. I see my mannerism, how I am.
Where to improve.
So it helps you to improve. All these things, when they are done well, you put them in what we call a portfolio and you gain points for it. So the CPD accessibility is so easy for everybody. Every teacher that wants to avail himself or herself for the CPD points.
What has been the level of reception from the perspective of the teachers as well?
I must confess that it has been very tough.
Okay.
Recently, I had to write a very strongly worded letter to the Director General of Ghana Education Service. It was all over the place that I have reported teachers. The news headlines, NTC reports teachers to the Director General, but that was not it. We just went into our database. We came out with the statistics, and it was clear that out of 350,000 teachers across the country, only 4,000 teachers will be paid that pace, will be able to get their licenses renewed by the end of 2023.
4,000?
4,000. So it's a worry to everybody. In spite of all the campaign, the advocacy going on, if that was to be the case. So I had to write to Director General to inform him that no, if the situation is not contained, we may have a legal dilemma on our hands, because we will not want to see Ghanaian classrooms empty. But we will also not want to see people who are not in good standing also be in the classroom. So there's the need to look at it.
But Doc, many believe that we see this happening because we're not going big on professionalism, making teaching a profession. As a country, where do you find us?
That is what we're doing now. You see, I'm so excited because recently NTC has been inundated with people applying for professional status. You know why? Just recently, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Zimbabwe were selected as the only 4 countries that are exempted from QTS if you are to move to the UK to teach.
Right.
They came to Ghana. Actually, they interviewed me online on 2 occasions, the Department for Education. And then they came to Ghana. I was not around, so they interviewed my deputy. They studied our licensing system to be sure that the system that we have put in place will be able to produce the qualified teachers that we need. And that's why Ghana was given this privilege. So it tells us clearly that we are not joking. And a lot of countries come to Ghana to study our system. 2 weeks ago, a whole team from Sierra Leone was in Ghana, and NTC was one of the places they came. I have received a letter from South Africa. We are coming here to study. A lot of countries come because what we have done at NTC is so much. The only difference is that my minister normally says that the good things are not really trumpeted. It's the bad ones that are that are always in the news. Yeah. And we're doing a lot of things. But change is so tough and difficult for people to assimilate. And so that has been our challenge. Teachers think that we are now overburdening them putting pressure on them, letting them do too much than they used to do, which is understandable. Because when I was in the classroom, there was nothing like CPD. Your notes, you take it, you teach. If you really have the luxury of time, maybe you do some research. Some people don't do any research at all. For 20 years, the same notes they will be given to the same student, to students every time. But now it's not like that. Teachers are being checked because there's the need for accountability. While we are making sure that we get the best from the employer, we also make sure that we reciprocate by giving the best quality of service. And that's what we are trying to do. Nobody in this world likes to be regulated, likes to be restricted, and likes to be supervised to do his or her work. Everybody wants to have that autonomy to move around freely to do what you want to do. But if accountability is not put in place, the desired results will not be achieved. And that is where we have had issues. Right. Initially, the teacher unions protested. Myself, in those days, we did a lot. Yeah. But I think the understanding is coming, a lot of education has gone into it, a lot of engagement. Now, we don't have any problem with the teacher unions concerning continuous professional development. The only challenge we have had now is people think that, well, the cost of professional development is too high for the teacher, and they need to look at it.
Are there some plans in place, possibly for a subsidy, or how do you intend
Presently,
to deal with
there's
that challenge?
something in place, but my colleagues think that it's not enough, and I agree with them. Okay. There's something that government pays annually for the teachers to be able to assess continuous professional development, but it's not enough. And so that one is not within my domain to determine how much government can pay. It is between the teacher unions and government through negotiation who decide what to do.
But I'm sure that we've made some gains, and that's why, for instance, you have the likes of Sierra Leone and South Africa coming to understudy. What are some of those highlights? I mean, key maybe milestones that you want to put out?
You see, the first thing that happened in this country that revolutionized education is the design of the National Teacher Standards. Okay. When government, with the support of TTEL, developed the National Teacher Standards, they realized that, okay, to be able to meet these standards, then there is a need to reform teacher education to be able to meet the standards. Right. And that's how the 3-year program was moved to a 4-year program. And then National Teacher Education Curriculum Framework was designed so that every training institution, University of Ghana, KNUST, UCC, will all have fidelity of implementation with the curriculum. Then when that one was developed, it then became clear that, okay, these two are meeting 21st century knowledge, but the curriculum that they're implementing will not meet that. So what do? You need to reform the curriculum. And that's how the national curriculum has also been reformed. So clearly, from the outset, the National Teacher Standards changed everything in this country. And now that that has happened, the major hurdle is the teacher who has been in the service for time before the change at the college came. We call them in-service teachers. We need to also bring them up to speed with the change. And so it is through this continuous professional development that the new curriculum the teachers will get abreast of the new curriculum.
We'll talk about the teacher shortly, but looking into the future, what's likely to happen? How do you intend to consolidate the gains that you've made?
Oh, the future is so bright for teachers. Now that NTC is getting that international recognition, our vision is to make sure that we create teachers without borders, such that the Ghanaian teacher will not only be acceptable in Ghana. You go to Canada, Ghanaian teacher is acceptable. Even now, they are really acceptable. We get a lot of requests of professional status from them. You go to the United States, you go to anywhere in the world, the teacher is acceptable. And if the Ghanaian teacher is so acceptable across the world, it means we have the best in our classrooms. And we want to see that every teacher in the Ghanaian classroom is professional and is in good standing to be able to deliver.
There's the saying that you can force a horse to the riverside, but you can't force it to drink water. So let's talk about the teachers themselves. What role do they have to play in this whole business of professionalism?
The first thing is for the teachers to avail themselves to the change. We must realize that that change has come and that we need to conform to it. 3 days ago, I was with the Nigerian, the registrar for the Nigerian Teacher Registration Council. And he was telling me how they changed the system. Now every Nigerian teacher at least can use the mouse, can use the laptop and so on. They started computer-based licensing of teachers, testing. And when they started, for them, it is not only those who are coming into the system, but even those who are already in the system wrote the exam. And so when they introduced the system, we said the first time they introduced the computer-based system, teachers sat behind the computer. Some people picked the mouse and they were showing it to the computer instead of using the mouse to do the right thing. So there was massive failure, but he got the support of government, he got the support of his minister. He said, it's an initial setback, people will get used to it and they will learn. And 3 years down the line, they started getting the results. Now every Nigerian teacher can at least type something on his or her laptop or computer. And that's a good sign. When we started this licensure exam, we had a lot of but we have demonstrated to the world that the people that we are churning out of our teacher education institutions, it's not everybody that is fit for the classroom. And last time I gave out statistics of the over 120,000 teachers that we trained as at October 2022. The 120,000 that wrote the licensure examination, 80,000 had passed. We had 40,000, some of whom had written about 8 times, 9 times, and had still failed. Are these people we want to see in our classroom teaching our children? Without downgrading any or demeaning anybody, it is clear that it is not everybody that passes through our teacher education system that is really cut for the job. And so this is the target for us to make sure that the right caliber of people are given the chance to enter our class.
Well, Doc, we need to go. What would be your message to teachers out there on the topic of continuous professional development?
I'll tell my teachers that they know the value already. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. They know the value of teacher continuous professional development. And we need their buy-in, their support. They should conform to it. They should support us to be able to implement it well. And then with that, we will all collectively be able to improve learning outcome.
Well, so you've heard it from the horse's own mouth. And of course, you out there as a teacher, you need to take advantage of the continuous professional development. But that's all time will allow us for the EduTalk Show. The EduTalk Show was brought to you by the Ministry of Education in partnership with the Teacher Education Journal. And we'll see you next week. I am Blessed Sogah, and of course, enjoy the rest of the week. Bye-bye.